Hi, would you like to introduce yourself and talk a bit about some of the work that you've been doing around decolonising?
Yeah, my name is Erin Sanders-McDonagh, and I'm a senior lecturer in criminology at the University of Kent. I am the director of studies for the Masters in Research Methods program. So we do a lot of teaching master's students in relation to various research methods. And recently, as part of a project going on at Kent, I've been trying to decolonize my curriculum in various ways. It's something that I've thought about in terms of pedagogy. So I do a lot of teaching on radical pedagogy, and I use the work of Paulo Freire and bell hooks and trying to think about how to decolonize the classroom and hierarchies within it. But it's been really interesting to think about how to decolonize a reading list in particular, and how to decolonize the sort of themes that I teach normally. I thought I'd talk about a master's module that I'm developing and that will run from October this year. It's an MA, it's a master's module for anyone across the programs, and it's on urban imaginaries, crime and deviance. So it's an urban studies module. And I have my key textbooks that I'd normally go to, key readings that I would usually read, things that I'm very familiar with, written by people that I'm familiar with. So a range of different scholars. And I've never really thought before about whether these scholars were people of color. I've never thought about how many women were present in my reading list. I didn't really think about how what I was asking students to read would impact how I taught or what they were learning in the classroom. So it's been an interesting experience to try and build up a module from the ground up, taking into account the decolonization sort of practices that I'm engaging in. So it can be difficult to find scholars if you're, you've got your set of readings that you normally go to, and to try and go outside of that can be a little bit uncomfortable. But I think feeling uncomfortable is part of the process. And it is a little uncomfortable because you start to realize that actually a lot of the reading content on your modules is white or middle class, or takes a very particular perspective, and that realization can be hard to kind of take on board. So it's been enlightening for me to really think about, who am I reading? Should I be reading scholars, from much more diverse backgrounds? And actually, after I've explored, different readings from different places, I've looked at, I've gone to BBC radio to look at, people who've been interviewed on various programs on Radio 4 and BBC Radio 4. There's a lot of really interesting programs that have taken up the Black Lives Matter, and a lot of authors and sort of speakers who I wouldn't have come across normally. So I've been able to sort of to listen to what they're saying, and then to kind of make cross references and include a wider range of material. So not just strictly academic material, although there's a lot of that too, but trying to think about how to incorporate more diverse voices that speak on different platforms. So not just privileging the voices of kind of academics in the ivory tower, but recognizing that actually, people who are speaking on issues that matter in relation to urban crime or urban deviance come from lots of different places. So it's been a challenge, but it's also been incredibly rewarding. And I haven't been able to do it for every topic that I wanted to cover. Sometimes I just couldn't find the right person, or I couldn't find the right reading, or something just didn't click. But as I keep developing the module and as I teach it next year, it's something that I'll be constantly looking out for. And it will change, I think, the way that I look for material and the way that I start to sift through. When I open a journal article, I'll look at it with different eyes, because I'm thinking, well, could I use that in my module? Could that be part of the decolonization process? So I think it's really changed how I engage with reading more generally as an academic. It's certainly changed how I think about developing my modules and what I include as kind of authoritative voices as part of that. So I think it's been a fantastic opportunity, and I would encourage all of my colleagues to take up this uncomfortable process and really look at what it is that you're teaching and thinking about what is it that we're trying to impart to our students. As social scientists, what we ideally want is to make the world a better place. And part of our responsibility is to kind of make that a public and a political form of engagement. And decolonizing our reading list is a relatively easy way to start that process, but I think quite meaningful in the end.
Excellent, thank you. That's great. That's some really great insights there. Was there any sort of like other sort of things that you've come across that you thought you wish you'd known before, or any sort of advice or anything that springs to mind that you think would be useful to share for other conveners that are considering doing similar work?
I mean, there are a number of sort of reading lists that you can go to that have been developed in the US and the UK in various places. Some of them cover topics that are relevant for me. Some of them might cover topics that are relevant to my other colleagues. There's no one sort of decolonized reading list that you'll be able to pull everything from. So it involves a little bit of searching and a little bit of, trying to see what's out there. But there are lots of people, I think, who are starting to kind of build lists and who are trying to, to build up, sort of a database of knowledge or database of scholars who we might be able to incorporate or use more fully. And I think it's also about using scholars, perhaps that we, using the work of Frantz Fanon or Hannah Arendt, scholars that are there, but sometimes don't take priority in our modules or in our teaching. So it can just be about recentering or refocusing sometimes, rather than trying to completely redo what we've already done.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you. That's really great.